an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering The Magicians, Season 3, Episode 4, Be the Penny. In this episode, Penny is stuck on the astral plane, can't communicate with anybody, and is getting increasingly irritated and disappointed by the fact that nobody but Kady really seems to be that upset that he's gone. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha. So first of all, thank you very much to Mathy for commissioning this episode. I was saying before I started that it's really fun to have just covered an episode yesterday and be able to immediately talk about the next one. And that means that I can go and watch the next one right after this. So that's fun. This episode, guys, was super duper fun. I really liked this one. I'm noticing with this show that I find the drama and tension to be the stuff that I like the least a lot of the time. I think that they do funny when they are really leaning into the funny very well. There are times where the funny can feel kind of like it's so meta that I'm just like, come on, fuck. But that tends to happen more when they're trying to insert humor into like a very serious situation. When they're kind of having a situation that's pretty funny anyway, and they just go with it, that's when I think that they shine, you know? I think that's part of why I enjoyed the heist episode so much as well. Because it's fundamentally a silly thing that they're like breaking into a bank and the, disco ball spell and everything, it's all silly. But it's like some of the best stuff that they've done. And so this episode with Penny just wandering around, following people and like having reactions to things that they can't see or hear. This just was right on target for the stuff that I think this show is especially good at. Mathy's here. Hi, Mathy. Thanks for commissioning this. So yeah, the start of this episode, we have the scene where, the last episode ended with Penny being on the astral plane. And I had said when this occurred that I was like, okay, they're still going to be able to communicate with him though. Because I failed to understand or realize or remember, it might have been like brought up because I know we've seen him astral project before, but I didn't really realize that when he does this, the only people that could see him and talk to him on the astral plane, excuse me, I don't know what that was, are other travelers. So nobody knows that he's actually still kind of alive, which I didn't realize that when the last episode ended. So yeah, when this one starts, and he's like basically jumping up and down and waving his arms and going, I'm right here. And nobody can hear him. I was like, oh shit, this is so much worse because they're watching him like handle his body and get ready to burn it. And eventually he does burn it, which, guys, what does this mean? They're going to have to like make a golem for him to inhabit, right? Like they're going to have to create another body to bring him back, unless the show is just going to continue to function with him on the astral plane and just leave him there, which would be amazing, to be honest. But I don't think they're going to do that. It would be very inconvenient. So yeah, we start off with Kady, like looking at his body and running away, like in a panic as she realized that he died. And Penny reaches out to try and stop her. And she goes right through his hand. And then he's trying to talk to her as she's pouring herself a drink and she's not responding. He's trying to touch a lamp. He's trying to pick things up. He can't affect anything. And I think also part of it was that he talked to the demon that was like performing surgery on him. And I expected, because the demon could see him, that other people in the room could as well. Excuse me. Goodness, I'm so like burpy. I'm sorry, guys. I think it's a little weird that when he looks over his shoulder and says, "No shame, bro," that if they couldn't see him, nobody asked what he was looking at. That's a bit weird to me. Like, wouldn't you? He's in the middle of like digging his fingers into your boyfriend's abdominal cavity and looks over his shoulder and says, "No shame, bro." And then comes back to it. Wouldn't you be like, "Buddy, what the fuck was that?" But apparently they didn't notice. I guess they were a little distracted. So the opening like 5 minutes of the show is pretty much Penny attempting to fucking like jump through people, touch things, and just realizing that he can't affect any of it. And then we have Julia coming to tell Quentin about Penny. And we see Penny watching this interaction. This is the best. So he sits down and she's like, "It's Penny." And she is talking to him, but we don't really like hear what she says because we're over with Penny off to the side. We just see Quentin burst out laughing. And Penny is like, "Oh my God, come on." Guys, I feel like this is the most relatable that Quentin has been for me. His acting in this moment, because he's like laughing, but he has tears in his eyes and he's clearly like not okay. This is not actually funny, but this is just like his body's reaction to a thing. This has happened to me before because my defense mechanism is always humor. That's how I handle emotion and distance myself from emotion, is by making things a joke. And this like instinctual, like it's a laugh that's not just like, this is so intense I can't handle it, but also they have just endured such a litany of bad news over the past 2 seasons that this feels like Quentin being like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" This is like your water heater bursts, your cat is like throwing up constantly, you like smash your car, and then you go to check your bank account because you're trying to fix your car and you realize that you've been overdrawn by like $400 and you just like burst into laugh tears at the auto shop in front of the mechanic because you just don't know what to do. That's the vibe I'm getting from Quentin right now. And you know, Penny is like really offended by this, but at the same time, like genuinely, Penny, you have never exactly been friendly to Quentin. What did you expect? And I don't say that with any sort of criticism. Like, I don't like Quentin. I don't like the guy. I think he's often very like self-pitying and has a fucked up view of things. I wish that he would have apologized more to Julia for just basically being like, "I'm turning my back on you because you won't fuck me." And he never really does say that that was like his problem, but I will never get over it personally. But regardless of how I think of Quentin as a person and whether or not it was nice of Penny to treat him the way that he did, I mean, I get Penny being like, even if you didn't personally like me, I've been deeply involved in all of the like drama that has gone on. And I think I deserve a little bit better than that, which that is fair. I get it. And the best part about all of this in its way is the fact that Penny is stuck in the astral plane in the fucking clothes he was wearing when he died. Which means he's wearing his librarian uniform, which is just so deeply, like, weird on him to see, because it's just so out of character. And I was saying, like, I really like this look. I liked the previous look that he was wearing as a librarian. This look that he's got on in this episode, I don't love. But it just feels like sort of an extra punishment to me that he doesn't even get to like be in the astral plane in something that he feels is like reflective of him. So yeah, he is in the living room. Kady, Quentin, Julia, and Dean Fogg are all sitting around drinking. And he's like, why is nobody crying? I saved all your asses so many times. Appreciate me. Guys, I gotta be honest. Go back and watch this scene and look at the expression on everybody's face but Penny's. I get the feeling they had to do this take a lot of times and that they were barely holding it together because they all look like they are desperately trying not to laugh. And I'm not trying to take away from all their acting because I just said the previous scene that I thought Quentin was doing really well. But this scene in particular, with him walking around frantically, ranting as they sit there quietly, they all, except for maybe Dean Fogg, look like they are very amused inside. They all have a look on it. It is not solemn at all. This is like every single person is giggling inside their head, even Kady. So Dean Fogg says, I suppose someone should say some words. And Kady doesn't step up to do it, which surprised me. Instead, it's Quentin. And he says, we're here to remember the life of a friend and student, William Penny Addit. I don't really know how to say his last name. And Penny says, it's Addiote, idiot. Which, you know what? Have you all ever been in this position where you, like, thought you were, like, friends with somebody and then something happens where you're put on the spot to know more about them and you suddenly realize that you really don't know anything at all about them? I've had this happen like 1 or 2 times. It wasn't like they died or anything. Like that happened once actually. But it's a weird feeling to sort of be like, oh yeah, I know them. Yeah, he's great. Such and such. And somebody be like, do you know where he lives? And you're like, no. Is that like you guys all call him Ace? What's his real name? Just is he married? Does he have kids? Are his parents alive? Like anything. And you're just like, oh God, wow. Okay. No, I didn't know who this person was. And that's what it comes down to is Quentin is saying Penny was complicated. I think he probably hated me, but, none of us really knew him. And that's Kady cutting in. Not even me. And that's how he wanted it. So, all I can really say is, and then she chugs her booze, slams her glass on the table, and walks out of the room. And Penny is just like, oh my God, this is real bad. This is so funny to me, guys. So he goes to the library. Something has happened here. Now, guys, I am extremely confused about what's going on in this library because as far as I know, the libraries aren't exactly part of Earth and they're still functioning, I thought. So what is the deal with the Netherlands? Are they like... I don't really... Because after Magic went away, Penny was turning up in for work and being given assignments. So what's up with this particular branch? I don't really understand what's happening here. And there are books that he is, there's a particular book that he's trying to grab that he can't even pick up. And then these 2 dudes come in and it turns out that they're basically using all of the books for fuel and toilet paper. And these 2 dudes that are in here are both cannibals. And they're very excited because some new people have turned up. And they call them fresh meat. And it's not really like... It's treated like as kind of a joke, which I'm fine with, by the way. But it's so weird. 2 weeks since we caught the librarian. Not much left but gristle. And they run out of there. And Penny's watching and it's like, you ate a librarian? And when we go up to the surface with them, it turns out that it's fucking Elliot and Fen and his daughter, their daughter. I didn't even think, because I was saying in the last episode, like, where the hell does that door go? And turns out the Netherlands, which honestly makes sense. It takes you to a place between. But I just didn't think of it, you know? Oh, Nicole's here. The Netherlands are the stopping place between worlds. They lost all magic too. I think the library's main branch is in the Netherlands, but there are other branches. Huh, okay. Because I thought that the Netherlands would be, like, I thought that they shut off magic to everywhere on Earth. So it's weird to me that the Netherlands are also affected. I find that really strange, you know? I don't know. No, everywhere. Okay. I mean, I guess that's true because Fillory. I guess I had it in my head associated that, like, Fillory was, like, a weird subsection of Earth. Like, almost like they're two different dimensions of the same plane. And so when you shut it off for Earth, it also shuts off for Fillory. But, yeah, that makes sense. She says, I think we saw the plumber in the library. Ooh, did we? I forgot. Okay. Thank you, Nicole. So, yeah, this is the moment where Penny starts to, again, yell about how, like, they need to watch out because these guys are definitely going to eat you. The one taller guy keeps reminding me of, what's-his-face when he plays the Mandarin in the, is it the third Iron Man movie? Because he's just got, like, the really long, narrow face, the beard, the top knot, and that he's got a very similar facial structure. But yeah, they are offered food because I guess the point is to, like, get these people to feel comfortable so that you can then slit their throats while they're asleep. So the whole family sits down at this fire of books and gets handed a little tin of food, and they're eating it, not knowing that this is a dude. It is amazing. So Penny closes his eyes and opens his eyes, and all of a sudden, he is back in the house, and he's with Alice and Quentin. And it's unclear to me how much Penny is controlling where he ends up, because he seems very surprised when he looks up and he's back in the house. I get the feeling that this is just like he closed his eyes in frustration at watching Elliot and his family eating a person and kind of thought, oh my God, I hate this. I want to be somewhere else subconsciously, and then just turned up somewhere else. And when he pops in, Alice is saying, I can't believe it, but I don't know. I loved him, I think. It's just, how come you never really know about how much you care about somebody until they're gone? And Penny gets this really, like, appreciative expression on his face. Like, he genuinely has a bit of a, like, aw, shucks kind of thing going on. And then a second later, I remember he used to let me ride around on his shoulders, and Penny's like, what? And then she says something about, were you close with your dad? And he's like, oh, God damn it. I fucking loved this, guys. I found this so funny. Don't you wonder? I mean, come on. Don't you wonder what people are going to say if something happens to you? I'm dying to know what people would say. I would fucking haunt the shit out of everybody. If there is, like, an untimely death situation with me, I want you all to remember that I said, I'm not moving on. Not for a while. I am going to hang around, and I'm going to fuck with everybody And I'm going to have a great time. And I'm going to want to hear everything everybody says. And I'm going to want to, like, just fucking let people know. There's going to be weird shit turning up. Cookies are going to disappear. Toilet will flush in the middle of the night. Netflix will just turn on to some, show in the middle of the day. It's me. But hanging around and listening to people's conversations would be exceedingly interesting. Of course, I love to talk, so not being able to interact with them would be absolute torture. So maybe I would hate this. So it turns out that Quentin's father, who had been dealing with cancer, is fine now because it's in remission, because the cancer was magical. Guys, I'm not going to lie. This is ridiculous, but also I kind of love it. I had been wondering, I brought it up a couple times about Quentin's dad and how it felt like they were like going in a direction with that, but then they failed to follow through on it at all. And I was just really puzzled by it. And it feels like this is the show being like, yeah, we sort of opened this door and then realized we don't want anything to do with that. So we're just going to close it. And we're going to make it this like really offhand comment that doesn't matter. It's not going to be a big moment of him hearing his dad's fine. We're not even going to waste the time on it because we know you guys don't care. And to be honest, neither do we. So here, we're just going to throw it into this conversation. Good. Because there is nothing less interesting to me in a show about magic than some dude who's got issues with his dad, his non-magical dad, and his dad's non-magical cancer. And it turns out to be magical and whatever. But good. I was very glad, to be honest. And the look that Alice gives him because he's like so happy that his dad's going to be okay. And he's like, I'm sorry. But, you know, she's obviously a little bit like freaked out at the fact that she's not going to be able to relate to Quentin about this the way that she intended to when this conversation started. So yeah, the two of them, they're just talking over about what's going on with their relationship basically. And she's like, you know, I had to come back here because there was no way that I was going to stay in the house with my mom. Like I couldn't even go to the burial and deal with her. So Quentin starts talking about their quest to get the keys and bring magic back. And shockingly, Alice is just like, are we positive we want this? Like, really, think about it. Do you? Because to me, it feels like we have just fucked up so many things. I kind of am not positive that I want it back or that we deserve to have it back. Quentin has a very sort of like predestination view of it. He says that he feels that they were like elected for this quest. And obviously is like, he's seeing them as the chosen ones, you know. It's playing into the fairy tale trope that he got very attached to when he was reading the Fillory books. So, you know, we saw what that moment where it turns out that he is not supposed to be High King of Fillory, that it's actually Elliot, and he just assumed that it was going to be him. And the shock that it was for him to realize that, like, no, he's not particularly special just because he loved these books. And I think this is, like, kind of making up for that a little bit, being on this quest. Even though he does have to share it with everybody, he's clearly kind of taking point on a lot of it. But, yeah, he's... When he says something about turning magic back on, she's like, well, if you turn it back on, what happens to your dad? And he doesn't have an answer for that. And she says, you know, she says, sometimes I want it back more than anything. I'm not going to lie, but sometimes I look around and we just have fucked up so bad. And I kind of just want to like be 23 and not know what the fuck I'm doing and just be like getting through and be allowed to make mistakes that aren't literally going to change the face of the earth. So yeah. And he says, I just remembered I have to tell Elliot and Margot about Penny. And so he sends a messenger bunny. And this is amazing because somehow Penny follows the bunny. It disappears and appears in Fillory, and Penny drops down at the same time with the bunny. And these are some of the moments, the reason that I enjoyed this episode so much, I think, not just the humor, but Penny is so dour so much of the time. And this episode, we really get to see a little bit of like wonder from him. There's a childlike quality to the way he's reacting to stuff that I am just fucking here for. He lands on the boat and looks down and he goes, that was super weird, in a voice that we haven't heard from him before. Like he's smiling and looking around like, what the fuck? Instead of the usual, he appears somewhere and he's like, Jesus, what the fuck now? He's usually just so angry about what his abilities do to him, because why wouldn't you be? That getting to see him just kind of being like, let's see what happens now, is enjoyable. So yeah, he's on the boat, and Margot and Tick and the map maker, whose name I still don't know, they are talking, and he's looking around and it's just like, they got an awesome boat. I can't believe that I missed this part. I didn't know about this. And they're talking about whether they could just like go somewhere else on the ship rather than going back and avoid the Fairy Queen. And Margot is realistic. She's like, look, we have to go back because she will find us no matter where we go. And she'll kill us, or she'll kill people we care about. Like, God knows. We just got to go back and deal with this. And the map maker picks up the rabbit, which just says, Penny's dead. Sorry. Y'all, that's fun time. Oh my God. Oh, that is so funny. So Margot, guys, the whole reaction. She says Penny's dead. Tick leans forward and says, was he not already? Penny is so offended at this. And then the map maker says, I can't believe it. He was my best friend. And that Penny like stops and is like, wait, what? Hold on. And then Margot says, I guess I always thought someday we were going to bang. And he says, me too, girl. Me too. Oh, this episode's so funny, y'all. I love this one so much. I really need to move it along. But I just wanted to talk about these like first few moments of him watching everybody separately, because it just like really, it lays the groundwork for what this episode's going to be. So then we go to him and he's in Kady's room and she is tearing through her stuff. And it didn't even occur to me. He's saying, I know what you're looking for. Don't. And I was like, what is she looking for? And then she like starts to use the, what do you call it, on her arm in order to shoot up. And I was like, oh, fuck, right. And like, yeah, you would. I mean, yeah. Mm-hmm. You got an addiction problem. This is when you deal with it like this, you know? So he says that he's not going to stick around and watch her do this to herself. And he goes downstairs and there is Todd is standing over Julia, and he's got this like green light shining on him. And his eyes are white like the woman that grabbed her outside of the library. And he says, Julia, help her now. And she says, what? And he says, "You're the only one who can." And she's like, what's going on? And he comes back to himself and is just looking at her, and she runs upstairs and uses magic to bust open the door, and then sees that fucking Kady is on her back in convulsions because she clearly like OD'd somehow. And she puts her hands over Kady's stomach and chest and uses like a pulse of magic to resuscitate her. And honestly, I was pretty impressed that she was able to summon enough magic to bust open the door and to help Kady. Like, it's been sort of presented to us that Julia only has this tiny little flicker of magic that can produce sparks. But I really get the sense that that it's slowly building back up again. Because she hasn't even really been able to control it very well. When people were asking her to do the spark thing, she wasn't even able to do it every time. So I'm hoping that this points to her being able to do slightly more. But, I guess we'll see. And yeah, she manages to save Kady's life, but it's pretty brutal. And I really feel for her. Like, Kady is a good character that I think they're handling as well as they can. And there are so many times where I'm watching shows where there's somebody who has an addiction problem and they're turning to it, and I'm just like yelling at them. And I don't feel like the compassion that I want to feel. And that's not how it is with Kady. With Kady, I feel it. I'm just like, oh man, I hate watching you do this, but like, I really get why you're doing it though. And I can't be that mad at you. It's just understandable. She's been being put through the fucking ringer. So all of a sudden this guy turns up and says that was gross. And Penny turns around and stares at him. And the guy notices that Penny's looking at him and is like, "Can you see me?" And it turns out that this dude, his name is Hyman, worst thing I've ever heard. He is stuck on the astral plane and has been for like 100 years nearly now. And he was a peeping Tom that he was a traveler, purposely would leave his body on the astral plane in order to be in people's rooms when they're fucking. He was called the pervert ghost of break bills. Pop into lectures, into dormitories, showers, you know how it is. And Penny's like, "What? No." And he says, "And as a prank, someone moved my body while I was," and he says, "being a fucking pervert." And he says, "Yes, in their defense, I was given several warnings. And I never found my body. You can't cast a locator spell without actual fingers, so it must have died without me in it. So," and then he says, "Joke's on them, because now I'm a ghost, so it's all peeping all the time." And he tries to like high five Penny, who is not here for this even a little bit. And Penny has to be like, "Dude, you're not a ghost though. That's not what this is. Like, the astral plane is a whole other deal. Our minds were traveling and now they just have no place to go back to. Ghosts are here because they've got unfinished business, so they relive their death over and over. Are you doing that? People can see ghosts. Ghosts can touch things. I know because I've been touched by a ghost and it wasn't great." And he asks, "Okay, well then how come I can sit in a chair? Why am I not just falling forever?" I love this because this is exactly the question that always gets asked, right? If this ghost can't touch things, how come he can climb stairs and walk on the floor, sit in a chair, be in a car? And the short answer is, I don't know. I don't make the rules. Which, you know what? Acceptable. That's fine. I like that answer. So yeah, this whole thing is amazing. That now Penny has this like pervy, shitty, terrible peeping Tom sidekick. And Penny is just like assuming that because this guy has been a ghost for so much longer, that he must have figured out a way to communicate with people. And this dude is like, I have tried 1,000,000 times, but it doesn't end well. And before Penny can ask him, what the fuck does that mean? It doesn't end well. He shushes Penny and goes running into the next room to watch Julia and Quentin. Now, guys, I love this so much, and I am not positive that I have this right. So I might be like reading into this in a way that the writers didn't mean. But he says something to Penny about how he finds a white straight male protagonist very relatable. And in this moment, he's talking about the tension between Julia and Quentin and how he kind of ships them in this way that really feels like he is almost in agreement with Quentin about like the bad version of Quentin that we hate from season 1, who was just like, you knew how I felt about you this whole time. It feels like they put this shitty white male peeping Tom ghost in to be an example of the shitty type of person that would ship Julia and Quentin after all of that went down. Like, I kind of love it. This is a dude who would definitely be on Twitter complaining about the new Star Wars and harassing Rose in Instagram and everything. Like, I might be reading into this too much, like I said, but I really enjoyed this whole thing. So they are talking about what was going on in Fillory and where they can find like these keys. They're talking about the different mountains. And it only takes one item, a golden key, to get into this like secret area. And he's, you know, this whole history of this thing, he says that means that the key is probably here on Earth and not in Fillory. So yeah, Hellas is okay. She's a bit of a Mrs. Grundy. Josh is my idol. That man is a magician. But Quentin, the outsider let into the inner sanctum of secret knowledge. As someone born in 1902, I find a heterosexual white male hero very relatable. Oh my God. Worst. I love it. I love it. So we go to the Netherlands, and they are sprinting away from the cannibals. This is really, really funny to me. I also enjoy seeing what's going on with all of these fountains. Like the one that they're hiding by is filled with ice. And I don't remember if all of them are like that, but that's a really interesting way of dealing with it. Like, we're not going to make these fountains empty because the point is that you can't see the bottom really. And so if we emptied them and there was a bottom, it wouldn't really like have the effect. We're going to have it be that like the water is still technically there, but it's just not usable in the way that we need it to be. So this leads to eventually a moment where Elliot decides to try and use his key that he has to create that bat illusion and use it to scare the cannibals away so that they can get back down into the library and use one of the doors there to escape. And rather than creating the bat monster, he creates his father, because apparently the ability of this key is to create things you fear. Deep, terrible fears. It's a Dementor key. So his father is standing there, staring at Elliot, Dress like that, everyone's going to know you haven't worked a day in your life. I didn't think you could make a sailor's uniform look gayer. And I really appreciate the sympathy that Penny has in this moment. You might be the only person in this universe more fucked than me. I wish I could help. And then he bails. But we wind up finding out later that Elliot used this illusion of his dad to distract the cannibals in much the way he was going to use the bat. And they ate his dad? Because apparently his dad was still flesh and blood, even though he was an illusion, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But I guess that's fine. It is funny. So we have Quentin and Julia, and they are figuring out where this key is. I'm not going to get into the whole backstory about why they think that this one woman has it. But suffice to say, she is somebody that the dean knows. And they are able to go to her house and try and convince her that it's Quentin who still has a little bit of magic left. They are about to walk out of the office when they get interrupted by one of the librarians who is trying to track down Penny. And he's the one who brings it to everyone's attention that Penny did not die in the normal way. He's he's got a contract and he is supposed to turn up in the underworld and report for duty. And he hasn't done that. And nobody can find him. So, we want to know what the fuck is going on. To which everybody else is yeah, we would also like to know that. And he goes and questions, Kady, who is in the hospital. And he tells her that they would use a corpse eater, to eat his body in order to resolve the fact that he says that the soul is tethered to the body for 7 days after death. He's likely in the process of becoming a vengeful spirit. Best nip that in the bud. So, yeah, we'll use that tether to yank Penny's soul out from wherever and send him on his way with the corpse eater. A corpse eater is a thing. I feel like it was Gaelic, but this is something that is a tradition that exists, and you would leave a sacrifice out for this person, and they would show up, and there would be a ritual at a funeral that they would eat in front of everybody, and it was this. It's a strange thing, but yeah. So this isn't just they're sort of positing that it's a mythical creature here. But in the traditions that I have seen, it's sort of a regular person is the avatar of the corpse eater on Earth. As far as I understand anyway. But yeah, so Kady isn't super stoked about this, understandably. And of course, Penny himself is I really want that body back, so please don't eat it. If the tether goes before Penny's soul has passed on, he's fucked. The corpse eater needs a tick to prepare, but she'll be here tomorrow at sundown. And he says she, and I'm just dying to know what she looks like. I would have loved that. So that's what's going on with them. We have the conversations with Kady and Alice, where they are discussing what to do, because Kady doesn't want to do this thing with the corpse eater. Alice is he's in between right now, and that sucks. If you send him to the underworld and he's able to have some peace, you'll be doing him a favor. And Penny is a little irritated by this. He wants to, of course, be given some more time. But Alice is kind of looking out for him in the best way that she knows how to. And Kady, for her part, is maybe something else happened, though. They might have this wrong. So there's a lot of back and forth throughout this episode between the two of them and what's going on there. We have Penny, who goes back to the he tries a couple different things, because there's this like scene where Hyman is trying to teach him how to be an object, like how to inhabit it, basically how to possess it. And Penny goes inside of a penny. The scene where he's teaching him is so hilarious. I loved it. And he manages it, and then he tries to do it with a few other things. So first of all, he tries to go inside one of the messenger bunnies. And then we have Margot, who is in the room while he's trying to do this. And Margot says, Fairy Queen bitch thinks she can break me with a few days' time out on Elliot's party boat. Your Majesty, upon return to Whitespire, might I suggest a hot bath to relax yourself? And she says, I can't, because that chalky twat won't get out of my tub. And this is when she comes up with the plan that they grind up one of the stones that she's allergic to, pour it into her bath water, basically knocking her out. And then she says, and then I will cut that bitch's heart out and eat it in front of everybody in the court and in Fairy to see. And I love this moment. She says this, and Penny is staring at her with just sheer admiration and says, whoa, fuck, Margot. You get shit done. And this was a great moment. And I kind of ship Penny and Margot a little tiny bit. Just a little bit. And I love Tick and the map maker just silently drinking out of their glasses. Like, okay, shit. So Penny continues exploring the house, trying to find things that he can inhabit. And he winds up finding the Margolem in Todd's closet. I love this so much because immediately you think that Todd is fucking the Margolem. But I genuinely believe him later on when he says that he just dresses her up and pretends that she respects him. So Penny inhabits the Margolem. And it is the most fucked up thing in the entire world. You guys, he comes like flopping down the stairs. It's so freaky. And the girl who plays Margot must have had a good time being this, like, weird. But, like, her head is back and she's moving all fucking weird and her eyes are, like, not lining up the way they're meant to. And she's just, like, yelling and groaning. And, you know, Penny is obviously, like, trying to make the Margolem talk. But Quentin just loses his shit and beats the ever-loving shit out of her with a broomstick. And then we immediately cut to Penny sitting on the, like, sitting with Hyman, and Hyman going, I told you it wouldn't end well. Oh my God, you guys, you only have 10 minutes left, but I just wanted to go step by step down through this episode because it's just so good. There's so many just great moments in this. Oh my God. So Julia and Quentin wind up tracing back where that key is likely located. And they find out that it's like this woman that the dean is friends with. And apparently there is a ghost that they're going to, like, investigate. And I don't even remember how this all ties in, guys. I was so distracted by the Penny story. And I tend to watch these episodes twice if I can. But because I had just recorded on one yesterday, I didn't get a chance to double watch it. So if anybody wants to, like, piece that together for me. But this ghost that they're going to go see is apparently, like, kind of a badass and had, like, fucked with Hyman one time. So when he hears them say they're going to go and see this, he's like, that's a bad idea. It's not going to go well for them. And yeah, they go into this room and there is this dude who is sitting at a desk and he seems to respond, when they come in turns and says, "Who are you? Did my father send you? You can tell him I'm not coming home for winter." And Penny, who knows that this ghost can see him, wants the ghost to communicate to his friends for him that he is there. And he isn't doing this properly. There's like a weird thing going on too from what Julia and Quentin can see, because they can't see Penny. They see this guy being like shoved around, and they think that it's the ghost being kind of out of control, but it's Penny moving him. So eventually it turns out that there's like this key that can show you the truth of things. And the kid who comes in to see him, Rupert, has this key and hands it to him. And the truth of things is that like they are meant to be with one another. And it's a really sweet moment where he holds the key and he realizes and is like, "Oh, I see." And they start making out. And there's just a really like cute, "Oh, how could this possibly be a bad thing? Look at these two ghost boys and their adorable romance." And it's really, really sweet. But then it turns out that his father is a horrifying bigot who was either like murdered him or abused him until he killed himself. And that dude is beating the hell out of this kid until Penny finally like jumps in on it and stops him, and then tries to get the guy to say his name. And the dude just keeps arguing that Penny isn't a name until finally Julia and Quentin just bail, because they just think everything has gone way too haywire and this isn't going to work out at all. So cut to the dinner, brunch, whatever it is, at the what's the name of this woman's? It doesn't matter. Long story short, Quentin has to distract this lady while Julia pretends to use the bathroom and instead uses a spell to locate the key. And it turns out that like this woman's house still has some magic left because her father basically created like a generator, but generators are powered by gasoline. So this is not a permanent fix, and it's starting to wear off anyway. But yeah, so they managed to get the key. It's this like whole thing. I can't help but wonder what is going on with the key, because when Julia picks it up, there are what look like two fairies standing behind her, and she gets a weird expression on her face. And later on, when she hands it to Quentin, she tells him, "I don't like holding it. It makes me feel like I'm not quite myself." But yeah, I'm pretty positive that those are fairies standing behind her. And I had thought that this was the key that shows you the like reality of things, and I don't know how that relates. But she definitely looks over her shoulder after she puts the key in her purse, as if she sensed the fairies were there. So yeah, I don't know what that means. Meanwhile, Kady has gotten some advice from the BuzzFeed lady that she should burn Penny's body. And that doing that will, send him to the underworld for eternity instead of sending him, the corpse eater would actually fulfill his contract, right? And Alice is really like, fulfilling the contract would be better because it's 1 billion years, which sounds like a long time, but 1 billion years is still less than eternity, which is what the underworld is. And you don't seem to like really get that. Meanwhile, Penny is arguing with both of them, and it's just like, I don't like either of these options suck, but I definitely don't want to be stuck at the library either. And while they're in the middle of arguing, he inhabits one of the candles that Kady has lit near his body and tips it over so that the whole thing goes up in flames. And I should mention that Alice is sort of like opening up to Kady in this scene. And she's like, I don't even know anything about Penny, to be honest, but I do know what it's like to be trapped and to totally lose control of yourself and your life. And in the underworld, he still gets to be Penny. And so, yeah, it's like a kind of a sweet moment where she's really trying to be honest with Kady. It just happens to be like the opposite of what Penny actually wants. And then Kady makes a really interesting confession where she says, it took everything I had to save his life. And then he died anyway. And to be honest, a part of me was relieved because it was over and I didn't have to like keep struggling anymore. And Penny looks really hurt by that. And she says, and if Penny was here, if he could tell us what he wanted, but he's not. And Penny, that's when he like pushes the candle over and lights it up. Please don't send me to the underworld. And then we cut to the house and Quentin and Julia talking about the key and everything that's going on with that. Dean Fogg comes in and decides that he is going to get wasted because they're closing break bills and he has to kick everybody out of these buildings, even though he's not really even sure who owns them. He doesn't know about anything. So he has no job. The school is closing down. Everything is terrible. And honestly, Dean Fogg, buddy, you need a little bit more direction. He is a disaster. So in runs Elliot, and they slam the door behind them. It is amazing because it took me a second to understand what was going on. When he yanks the key out of the door, and I was like, oh, they traveled like directly from the library to this door. But for a moment, I was just like, why are they on the grounds of the school chasing them? How did this happen? It really took me a minute to understand. And this is just, I love this so much. I love this reuniting of everyone, especially with his daughter being here and like fucking grown and just throwing everybody off. The cannibals blocked our only point of egress. Naturally, I resolved to use the key, which in Fillory created illusions of a terrifying monster. He made his father instead. No spoilers. But yeah, what she said. And so, yeah, it turns out they make illusions of what you most fear, hence my dad. I told my father that the guys in the tent didn't know the difference between a tractor and a backhoe, so he went to set them straight. You're saying you fed your dad to cannibals? An illusion of him. But yes, it was very cathartic. There was a lot of screaming on both sides. Oh my God, I wish we had gotten to see that, guys. I really, really do. So at this point, they're talking about the truth key. And he's like, I can handle some truth. He picks it up. He's standing there with it. He's going, I don't know. I don't see anything. Maybe it doesn't work for me. And then he glances over and says, oh, hey, Penny, just as he's handing the key back. And that's the end of the episode. Genius ending, guys. I was laughing so hard. I fucking loved this. This is so good. This whole episode was so good. Even though the whole thing going on with Quentin and Julia, I like lost track of exactly what was happening there. In the end, it doesn't really matter. It's fine. Unless that woman winds up coming back and like being a thing. But for now, it doesn't matter. And this was a good one. I enjoy seeing Penny kind of like knocked off course, which is a funny thing to say about a Traveler character, but there it is. So yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Thank you to Mathy for commissioning this episode and Nicole for explaining the thing with the Netherlands. And I will be seeing you all again soon with a new one. So until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
was an Unspoiled Network podcast.